Hello. Have you ever asked yourself what does it really mean to know a word? What does it take to know a word? When I see some people saying that they know English, well, I feel cringe, because knowing even a single word sometimes takes so much time and efforts. In today's lesson, in today's video, I will give you a step-by-step guidelines or, well, then the plan of the analysis that we adopt in lexicological research. We'll take one word. In my case, I will take the word bag and we'll go step by step how to learn this word, how to study this word, right, as a researcher. And we'll find more and more information on this word. Well, in analyzing your word, I also want you to, well, first identify the word of your choice, then, of course, identify such blocks of information as the origin of the word, the form of the word, senses of the words that this word can have in multiple contexts, then possible synonyms and antonyms that designate the concept that is primary in this word, collocations and idioms, so the other words that can be used with this word together frequently. Style and register, so then different fields and different situations in which the word can be used frequently. And finally, the cultural context behind the word, maybe the phenomena that the word stands for, or its importance, or something about the usage and the communicative behavior of the native speakers with this word. All of my students have chosen a word, so their projects will be based on their own independent study of the word. I want you to make it your own creative task, and I will give you a list of questions on each item to be answered. As you start your project, you can do it in any form you like, but be creative and try to speak out your mind. Please start with the introduction, answering these questions. Why did you choose this word for the analysis? What is so special about this word? What associations this word trigger with you as a person? What do you expect to find out in this research of the word? So please make a pause now, put the video on stop, and then write down these things. Moving on. The first type of the analysis after your introduction is etymological one. You need to clarify the origin of the word. In this block, you have to answer the questions: how old is this word? Where does this word come from? What language does it originate? How did it get into English? What possible meanings did it have before? And how did people use this word before? If you have any examples of such usage, you're welcome to provide them. In my case, I have two choices. I can either open Google and find the etymology, right? And then it'll give me some short information about the word coming from Old Norse language. But this information is not sufficient enough. So I'm then bound to look for some other dictionaries, etymological dictionaries, manuals on history of word, websites in history of language, and so on. In my case, I give you this link, so maybe it'll be helpful for your study, for your self-study. So then here I find enumeration of various senses that this word had acquired throughout the history before it got into English. Small bag. In the 13th century, that was the first sense that this word came with in probably Old Norse language. Then we have belly, probably from Old French. We have also the such meaning as person's area of interest or expertise, but that's a very specific jazz slang that was used at that time. We had also one more meaning here as a woman, which was disregarding of voice and then a disrespectful term for an old lady in the first part of the 20th century. You can place all these sentences chronologically or describe them in your own way, in your own words. What I do not want to see here, copy-pasting some blocks of information from the internet. No, that's your own study, so please write your own way, describe it. You can make an infographic, but please also give a few sentences describing these infographics. At the end, you write the conclusion, so then concluding this part, what you have found out about the history of this word. What was so curious about this. And obligatory, so that's mandatory part, you need to include the source. So please leave the link to the source from which you took the information, or maybe sources if they are multiple. Now, please, so let's make a pause. Put the video to the full stop and then please do this analysis. So follow these steps and make your own analysis, your own research. Now we continue. Second type of analysis is morphological analysis. Now we come closer to the structure of the word, the internal structure of the word, and how this word comes into play when other words on its basis are formed. So we need to answer the question, so is this a monomorphic or polymorphic word? What word family does it form as a root? And under this word family, I mean the other words that are derived, that come from this word, that are related morphologically to this word. In my case, I open such resources as word formation or derivation dictionaries. I have here several links. And I find such words as baggy, baggage, unbagged, baggy again, but with a different part of speech label, a handbag, bag-like, to bag as a verb. So what do I need to do next? I need to identify what kind of word formation process took place here in this case. So I put down first the part of speech because that's important. You remember in English we have conversion, which can be distinguished only when we indicate part of speech. And then you absolutely clearly indicate the word formation process, suffixation, prefixation, compounding, then reduplication, conversion, whatever you have there. So try to find here as many words as possible with this bag, bag, bag. In some sources you can find it either searching the beginning or the end of the word. So the search will provide you with all the words that either start or finish with this bag in my case, or with your word. Right, so you can take also the verbs, but in this case, in the brackets, you can include their forms like bagging or bagged. These are word forms. Again, as you finish describing this word family with your word, please include the source or the sources and the conclusion. A short conclusion, one sentence. So what do you think about this word? Like maybe something about this most common, most productive word formation processes that that happen with this word, or maybe you can come to conclusion about this word's productivity, how productive this word is, and in how many cases does it take place. Good, so now let's make a pause, put this video to stop, and then please go and make your part of analysis. All the links are below in description of this video, so you can find there the presentation and follow these links, or just try to find the other sources for the analysis. Maybe they will provide more information with your word. Third type of analysis is semasiological analysis. Now, after we discovered the origin of the word and the form of the word, we need to come to the semantics of the word meaning. And this is where we start with semasiological perspective. So we want to find out all possible senses, not meaning, but senses of one single lexical item, right? So we take the word bag, for example, and we want to answer questions. So what does this word mean? All possible senses. What possible senses does it have? Which of them are primary and which of them are secondary? Which of them are more often used? How are the senses grouped? And how are the senses related? That's it. I will provide you here with several steps that can help you go through this complex analysis. Probably this type of analysis is most difficult, but please be very attentive here. Everything is pretty easy if you follow my steps. First step, you need to open the monolingual or bilingual explanatory dictionaries. So these are dictionaries that give you definition or explanation of a word. You can use translation, of course, but somehow it's not always useful. You'll see. In my case, I have the word bag. So I need to collect all possible senses of this word from English dictionary, and only after that I can translate them into Ukrainian. So I can put down the translation. So I put down here a purse or lady's bag, and then sumka. In brackets, I can indicate here either this is a main sense or is this direct or indirect. In this case, that's direct sense of the word. Then I have any container from the made of plastic, paper, or then cloth. It can be opened on its top, like sack or then the bag. Right, I put it down with two languages, and yes, this is again direct meaning, direct sense, sorry. Here, if I give some examples, that's even better. I have here examples such as handbag, garment bag, duffel bag, sleeping bag, tote bag. So all of these bags, so they show any container, not specifically ladies' bag, so just any container. And that's direct sense. I also have here indirect sense, for example, so that'll be something that has air inside. So that just any air bag or anything that contains air. In the mountains, there are airbags, for example. Of course, that's indirect sense. So I do not mean here a literal container. That's rather some space that's similar to a bag. So that's what I put down. And I continue with the full list of my senses. When I finish listing all senses from all possible dictionaries, so what I do next, so normally I take like 20 senses, so that's enough. Because you will find lots of them in the terminological dictionaries especially. Now, second step, we need to group these senses into domains or blocks. So you can call it the way you want. But the point is still clear. Please do not look at the text that is colored. I will explain it in a moment. I'm going to explain it in a moment, so that's just do not make a mess of it. We are just organizing these senses according to some major feature, some major idea that is common for them. For example, I have a domain container. And I put here, so that's будь-який контейнер з паперу, тканини чи тонкого пластику, що має повітря всередині, як карман, порожнина, западина, подушка, безпеки, and so on. Second domain, content. Пожитки, особисті речі, майно, пожитки речі взагалі. Або ягдаш, здобич, здобич мисливця. So, where do I know, how do I know these names of domains? I do not know them. I just have to guess. I just have to name them. I mean, I need to group thematically, and I need to identify the concept that is common, that is uniting them, these senses together. In my case, so these are container and content. These are not the only concept, not only domains that are present here. Of course, there are much more. So what I want you now, please take your list of senses and group them thematically into domains. After grouping, give names to your domains. You will see that these names are a bit more general than your word sense. That's absolutely fine. So you'll have their more general terms just to organize the senses together. And that is the hierarchical hyperonymic hyponymic and hyperonymic relations. You give the terms which are more abstract, more general. That's fine. So you are just naming your domains. After naming the domains and grouping your list of senses, you need to follow the step 3. In this step 3, I want you to take within each of domains, so you take one domain at a time, right? Within the domain, I want you to identify how the senses are related and what kind of semantic process took place there. For this, I want you to give numbers from your initial list. Please keep the numbers as they were in your initial list and indicate them this way. So in my domain container, I have several senses. Over here, there are 2 senses. So you remember the first sense that I had was lady's bag. So I put it down here this way. So I have this sense, it's written here in Ukrainian, just to make it clearer. I put down here 1 gives way to 2, right? So that sense 1 is related to sense 2 as broadening of meaning, generalization. Why? How do I know this? How do I get it? So you remember the first sense I had was lady's bag. And the second sense is будь-який контейнер з паперу. So what has happened here? Lady's bag became будь-який контейнер з паперу. So this is broadening of meaning, generalization, right? So we had a substantial broadening of scope of information. Good. Now, what is this thing in yellow? Please do not pay attention to that. I will explain it just in a moment. So we'll add more and more and more and more information. Good. Look here, over here, pay attention to my pointer. So, щось, що має повітря всередині, як карман, порожнина, запалена подушка безпеки. Okay. Now, so how 2 and 3, how these 2 are related? 2, so sense number 2, this one, is related to sense number 3, this one, as broadening of meaning. Again, so we have another generalization. So now we can trace and see that the word lady's bag gave birth to the meaning будь-який контейнер з паперу, and these будь-який контейнер з паперу was extended even more and gave way to the other sense, щось, що має повітря всередині. So you see how people broaden the meaning and generalize things, right? So that's one of the first process that takes there. Let's look at this domain content. Пожитки, особисті речі, майно. The question is, so how is the first sense, the main sense, сумка, related to пожитки, особисті речі, майно? So that's broadening of meaning and generalization. Була сумка, а тепер раптом все те, що є в цій сумці. Good. One more. Пожитки, речі взагалі. How these 2 senses are related. Number 4 and the next one, number 5. Again, we have here broadening of meaning and generalization. And so here is one more thing, Yahdash zdobich. So how is this number one, so the first sense, connected or then related with this sense number 6, Yahdash, жіноча сумка. So that's narrowing of meaning. So that's a very specific content, a very specific, well, thing that you get home, or well, that's poultry or game that you get home as a hunter. In some cases, you can have here generalization or specification, metaphor, or metonymy. That's why I want you to indicate, in case you have metaphor or metonymy, type of metaphor or metonymy. How to know the type of metaphor or metonymy? We have discussed it in our seminars, but I will give you here this block of information with the examples. So these are the types of metonymy and types of metaphor. So metonymies can be based on container-content relations, material or something that is made from material relations, author and author's work, agent and instrument or result, part and whole relations, and whole and part relations. Metaphors can be also of different kinds. For example, metaphors of form, metaphors based on function, metaphors based on appearance, metaphors based on sound, location, or general impression. Mind that sometimes we can have metonymy, metaphor metonymy, or metonymy metaphor. So that's a blended type of them, of relations. So again, in your relations, you can find there are some indirect meanings, and these indirect senses, they will have either metaphor or metonymy as the main process, semantic process underlying them. So please make a pause at this moment, group your senses into domains, and in each domain try to identify these semantic processes. Indicate them in brackets and show which relations do you compare. So which senses just by numbers, so put numbers. So the first sense will always be number 1, and then second, 2, 3, 4, and you just enumerate them, okay? Good. So with that finished, we continue, and then it comes to the very, very last detail. That was something in the yellow color I gave you. This is the extra information. This is not mandatory, obligatory. So if you do not want to include it into your analysis, so please skip this stage. If you want to include it, so then listen to me. I will show you back this picture. So here, as we analyze the senses, we identify the domain. We said that we identified the semantic process. And now the only part that is left is to show what kind of logical or prepositional relation is here. So yes, it is broadening of meaning, but what kind of broadening specifically? We can see that in our case, sumka, lady's bag, is related to будь-який контейнер з паперу by the relationship of classification. So, this is сумка, от вона має ось такий вид. Є сумки ось такі, а є ще сумки з паперу, а є ще сумки з тканини, а є ще сумки з тонкого пластику. So, this is classification. Тобто, у нас є тип і є вид. Типовидові ось ці відношення. Okay, that's why I put it down here as classification schema. What is schema? This is a certain structure that explains how the two entities, the two concepts are related in our mind. That's a very simplistic definition. Sorry, so you didn't have the cognitive linguistic course, so I do not want to give you some theory here. But then if you are willing to go a bit deeper into what I have told you in the seminars, so you can use this methodology. Look here, something that is a bit more different. Пожитки і особисті речі. Яким чином вони пов'язані із ladies bag? Тобто, yes, we know it is broadening of meaning, generalization. Була сумка, стало все те, що є в сумці. But this is what kind of broadening? What kind of generalization? So this is the relationship of container content, right? So this is what you imagine when I say, oh, ladies bag, or get your bags out and leave the house. So when you hear this, me saying this sentence, so you immediately imagine somebody having um, not really the bags, but belongings in the bags. So we imagine container, and this container has some content inside. So that's what we understand. We name container. We use the word container. We say container. We say the word bag, but we mean actually the content. So again, so these container content relations is something that motivates and explains how this new sense came into existence. The same idea here with Yardash and Zdobich. Yes, this is concretization, narrowing of meaning or specification, but what kind of specification? Right, so we again have this container content. This content has a certain container, sorry, it has a certain content. Right, now let me continue to the other thing. So then, just with this final stage, you are expected to go through the domains and try to identify these logical explanatory schemas for each of the sense relations. If you cannot do this because it's too complicated, so just skip it and leave it at the stage number 3. I will not reduce the mark for not including this aspect of the analysis. With that in mind, let's continue and move on. As you have finished your description of senses, I want you to group them and visualize. Why? This is instead of a conclusion. In your picture, I want you to show, maybe in different colors or somehow grouped together, the senses that are related. So again, here I show with the color my domains. So this is not just beautiful picture coloring the way I want. No, I show the domains. So this is the domain of content. This is the domain of container. This is the domain of quantity. And this is the domain of metaphor. And by here, I mean the metaphors of resemblance. Зовнішність. Here I have analogy, and here I have metamorphosis. So that's the only case that I have here. I have classification schema over here and some metaphor and metonymy again. So what I want you to do is just to visualize your domains on one picture, just to systematize it and to show the whole picture. This is called polysemy network. So you show basically how the word bag, or your own word, is spread into these multiple senses, how it develops. Good. With this done, so nothing more difficult is ahead. That was the most difficult one, the most difficult aspect, and we have done it. Now, onomasiological analysis. That's a bit easier. Here in this analysis, we should take one single sense. So try to take one meaning of the word that is most important, most primary or main, kind of main sense. And you need to answer the questions. So what frame of conceptual field does this word belong to? Well, in my case, bag, I mean a certain container. So what is the frame or the conceptual field? Of course, the field of containers. So that's a class of containers, any containers. And my word is there. Okay, probably I can say yes. So this word belongs to containers, and containers are things or personal items, and so on. So that's just a very short answer. What related words are there in this field? I can provide a few examples. I can say that, well, I can find there such words as sack or backpack. I can find some related words like the handle or the button, because they are kind of parts of the bag. I can find there some words that represent the content. So just a few words that show the related words, but not synonyms, not yet, not yet. We'll come to that in a moment. What words share the same sense of the word? And now comes, well, the next stage, so then the synonyms. We need to identify synonyms and antonyms of these words according to one sense. Do not take all the senses. Якщо вашого слова 15 різних значень, це не означає, що ви на всі, абсолютно всі значення маєте надавати якісь синоніми. Особливо, якщо ці значення далекі, не такі близькі до основного значення. Right? So you need to choose only the main sense and find the possible synonyms. First, what you do, you open the dictionaries of synonymy or synonyms. Thesaurus, you can take a thesaurus or thesauri. So these are dictionaries that organize words according to ideas, or thematic dictionaries and encyclopedias. In these dictionaries, you will find a lot of various synonyms. And what I want you to do with them, I want you to group them again into domains and give them these domains the names, right? In my case, I have female bags. I have bags for then hanging on the shoulder, on then the names of bags based on where they are carried, like backpack, rucksack, backsack, and knapsack, sachet, handbag. So all of them, they represent the idea of getting the bag on certain part of the body, on some location, right? Female bags, so they all represent the types of female bags, or also the male bags, and they show classification. I can have there another domains of bags with the idea of functionality. So in this case here, I include only words. I do not include phrases here. Pay attention to this thing. No phrases, only words. Okay? Yes, so I group them. I translate them into Ukrainian just to make sure that I understand each and every word. So if you do not translate it, I do not believe that you know it. Please show that you know these words, translate them. Only after that, group them, give the names to the domains, and as you finish, I want you to build, finally, to show how these words are related, right? In my case, I show here a picture of the word traveler. I showed you this picture during the seminars. You can see that the word traveler has lots of different names and semantic variations, right? Synonyms and antonyms. And all of them can be grouped into separate blocks according to the main feature, integrative feature that organizes them, like travelers for leisure, travelers for sightseeing, travelers for exploration, travelers for trading, travelers for because of the some causes that make them travel unwillingly. Travelers for religious purposes and places, travelers because of, travelers as the way of living, and so on. So I want you just to name, you can simply skip using these various semantic roles or these prepositional schemas. I use them just to indicate the logical connection. You can just name them as you wish. So we'll give these names to these domains and then reflect it on your map. Now let's make a pause and do this type of analysis. Only after that you can just continue watching the instruction video. Good. Again, so traditionally, finish this block with your conclusion and with the list of sources that you used. Moving on. Number 5, phraseological analysis. Now, when we know the meaning of the word, we know all the synonyms of the word, we come to the point of understanding how this word behaves in language, in multiple texts. To understand this, we need combinatory dictionary, a dictionary that shows the collocations with which the word is used or collocates. These collocates can be free, they can form free word combinations or word groups, or they can be kind of bound phraseological word combinations and units. What we want to do first, we want to answer the question, how does the word collocate in speech in general? So open the dictionary, like this one, free dictionary, and you will find there, or then free collocations, this one is better. So you'll find lots of different collocations. I want you to select them into blocks. First block will show how these collocations, these collocates, how they qualify the word. Normally all your words are nouns. So for example, here I have word collocations like carry a bag, shopping bag, bean bag, dustbin bag, strong bag, heavy bag, beach bag, and so on. What I also do, I group them thematically. I try to group them thematically, like canvas, leather, paper, plastic bags, so all of that represents the idea of material. Strong and heavy, so that's just evaluation. Clutch, shoulder, drawstring, so that's about the design and the structure of the bag. I also have here some phraseological units, so I put them into a different box. If I will need them for the other stage. Now I also have some verbs that collocate with this word bag. Open bag, unfasten bag, to unzip bag, to close bag. So I put them in different color in different box. Yes, you can organize them also thematically. I have some words that can be collocates of the word bag, but as the subject of the sentence. For example, the bag bulges with something, the bag contains something, the bag is crammed with something. So I place them separately. And finally, if you have there some stable, fixed prepositions with this word, so please include them into separate blocks. Sorry, it's over here. In the bag, inside the bag, the content of the bag, and all these of phrases, they should also be placed in this green box. If you have the opposite direction of the phrases, which I show with the arrows, you can also include that. For example, the bag of apples, the bag of fleas, the bag of cats. Let it be there. So, with this grouping, you can show already the whole picture, the whole combinatory portrait of the word. Комбінаторний портрет або скетч слова. Тобто, як слово поводиться в мовленні, з якими іншими фразами воно постійно вживається. І саме цей аспект відрізняє носіїв мови від неносіїв мови. Знання стабільних колокацій, колокацій вільних словосполучень, ідіоматичних словосполучень без різниці, які постійно носії мови використовують у власному мовленні. І саме на таких словосполученнях, на комбінаториці, ми допускаємо найбільше помилок. Good. So that's something that you can do also to improve your own language competence, linguistic competence, and language competence. Good. Now we'll follow the other steps. So I want you only to build this picture and then leave a few sentences explaining this picture and giving the answers to the questions that you have on the previous slide. Now, coming up, In your list of collocations, you will probably find some phraseological collocations, right? In my case, with the word bag, I have quite a lot of them. For example, I have a bag of bones, old bag, bag of wind, then scarce bag. So all of them represent metaphorically a certain human. I can also see here metonymy, like a bag lady, and that's metonymy, so I place it in a different box. I can find here some phraseological units that can be metonymies, but about then belongings. Pack your bags, or bag and baggage. In this way, I just organize all my phraseological units into boxes according to the a correlating concept, the one that we basically substitute. So we say the conceptual schema is the bag is as if food. The bag is as if, or the food is as if bag. So this direction can be different depending on the example. But I want you to organize them in these blocks just to show this conceptual relation. I will send you the other video that explains how to work with phraseology based on the example with cat idioms. 2 years ago, I made this video on my channel showing how to learn idioms. And I choose the word cat for those purposes. With this video, you'll see how to do this, how to learn idioms and how to use it for your analysis. So again, I expect from you only a small picture showing organization of the idioms and phraseological units. That's it. Well, in concluding this part with the combinatory portrait or combinatory sketch and the phraseological network, I want you just to give the list of the sources and just a very short conclusion. Please make a pause here and then do it. Now, following up, the very last item in your project, stylistic analysis. Only after you finished the previous stages, you proceed to stylistic analysis. Why? Because here you have to answer a bit more general questions. More general from the perspective of the language analysis. I mean, you have to broaden your outlook here. You need to answer the question, how do people use these words in different registers and with different purposes? So that's already about pragmatics, right? Are there any negative or pejorative uses of the word, or any positive or ameliorative uses of the word? Where to find such negative or positive using of the word, or the example of the word usage? You can find them in slang dictionaries, in terminological dictionaries, in dictionaries for writers, and associative dictionaries. By this time, you should have already known which senses, which word combinations, phraseological units have positive or negative meaning. So this is exactly the place in your project where you can make these remarks. Say, well, in my analysis, I have discovered that such and such units have positive connotations, and such they have negative connotations. Such of them are representative of slang in English, and such are typical examples of jargon, for example. If you have there some neologisms with your word, you're welcome to indicate that. What typical associations that these words have with native speakers? You can use associative dictionaries just to indicate and say, well, normally native speakers associate these words with such and such things. So again, so that's just a sentence or two. I do not expect here from you a comprehensive analysis of a dictionary of verbal associations. No, just a few remarks based on what you have observed. Finally, you need to answer the question, what does all of this information tell you about the English culture? through the perspective of this one single word, and that's it. With this said, you finish your analysis with again sources that you used for this aspect of analysis, and you proceed to the very last item, lexicographic analysis. Here I give you only 3 questions. You can write down only 3 sentences. It's up to you again. So the first question, what dictionaries did you have to use? So you need to name the types of dictionaries and the purposes for which you used those dictionaries. For example, you say, in my work, I use etymological dictionaries to find out about the origin of the word, and you name the word. I also had to use and try to paraphrase each time. I also had to use then explanatory dictionary to find out about all possible senses of the word. And morphological dictionary gave me more information about the word structure and the word formation. Good. So you need to enumerate them. Which of them are most efficient and informative? Again, so that's your own evaluation, your own opinion. You can write here whatever you feel you want to say. And finally, a creative question. What significant improvements would you like to see in lexicographic sources like this, in dictionaries? So maybe you have some recommendations or remarks or critical things that should be mentioned about the dictionaries. Think of some perfect dictionary that you would like to have that would economize your time and efforts, and just write a single sentence or two about this thing. That's it. With this said, you just finish up, you again collect all the sources in one place again, and you submit your paper to the Teams platform. All in all, we'll have a week to complete this work, and I will extend the deadline, especially for those who still have some troubles with electricity, with connection, and then the internet, or maybe some other things that interfere into the process of finishing the course and accomplishing this task. If you have any questions or anything that should be clarified, you are welcome to leave your comments in the chat of the class, of your group chat in Teams. I am always there to answer you, but please do not bombard me with the personal questions to my private email, because there are too much of you and I cannot give the answers to all of you as far as the end of academic year comes, the end of the semester comes to its logical conclusion, and I need to give the feedback to all of the students. That's it. I hope that this analysis was useful, and finally, congratulations. Now you know how to learn the words, and you know your own word, the word of your choice. I hope it will help you to boost your linguistic skills and will give you some tools to analyze language in the future and to, improve your learning of foreign languages in general. Thank you so much for watching. Please have a good luck in your projects. See you around.